Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Zoom session. Today, we are going to look at the latter part of presentation style and oral communication in Unit 5. As you already know, we have covered until locale in presentation. Today, we are going to move to kinesics, paralinguistics, and within that, we are going to look at voice, pitch, intonation, and stress and rhythm. Right. So, what things that we need to know to prepare ourselves for the presentation? It's not just the verbal content of your presentation that is important. There are certain other things that we need to be careful about too. Amongst them is your body language, which is the kinesics. And together with that, we have something called as paralinguistics, which is to do with about language or how the language functions. Now let us look at kinesics in some detail. Now kinesics has to do with the body language. And you know that your body is communicating out to your audience or the listener just as much as the verbal content of your message. So it is two messages being sent at the same time. And the non-verbal message, which is your body language, if it does not match with the verbal message, then this kind of discrepancy can result in the breakdown of communication. So there are things that we need to be prepared about. And the things that we need to prepare about in the body language are how to maintain the eye contact. Now this is extremely important. If you want your audience to feel included in your presentation, then you need to have a steady eye contact with your audience. And the way to do it is to look at everyone briefly, or rather in every direction briefly. The next is how should you look in the face and the eyes. Your face should appear calm and your eyes should exude confidence. In fact, your whole appearance should be one that exudes confidence. And this is something that cannot be overemphasized, because only when you're looking confident to your audience can you really get your message across to them. Next is what gestures are all right to use. If you want to emphasize a point, if there is a list that you want to share with your audience, it's always good to use some gestures. And it helps to emphasize what you are trying to say. So it's good to be using gestures, only that you should not be overdoing that. Next is how should you carry yourself. Now when you are on the stage, then at that time you should at all times be acting in a confident way. Now this confidence comes with how well prepared you are in the content of your presentation, how well you know the field which you are discussing about. So all of that gives you the confidence, because you are the master of your content and your body language is syncs with what you are saying only when you have that confidence within you, right? So at all times you should act in a confident way. You should not lean, or you should not be swaying from side to side. You should avoid those that kind of body language. If you want to rest your arm on the podium, that's absolutely all right. There are a lot of speakers who do that. They stand alongside the podium and they speak. It's absolutely all right to do that. And you should feel one with the audience when you're giving your presentation. The more you feel one with the audience, the more you can know that your presentation is being successful. And again, the last is your overall appearance. Naturally, your appearance should send out the message of confidence to your audience. The more confident you feel, the more confident the audience feels in you. If you feel embarrassed, or you feel unhappy or fearful while you are there on the stage, you transmit the same feeling into the audience. And audience also does not want to be in that kind of a feeling. So it is very important that you feel confident and you transmit the same message across to your audience. Right. So the next is paralinguistics. Just as body language is important, paralinguistics, or how you use your voice and how you speak, is also very important to the delivery of the message. So it is important because it basically makes or breaks your presentation. It is as important as that. It makes your personality. How you come across to your listeners or to your audience depends upon how you speak. It is the quality and the nature of voice that most of the time determines how you are perceived by the people around you. You can be taken as a leader if you have a deep, resonant voice, a low-pitched voice, and you only need to think of some popular leader in today's context, and this would be clear to you what I'm speaking about. If, for example, you have a squeaky, small, weak voice, you would generally not be taken as a leader. You'll be taken as a follower. If you do not have much of pitch variation, that is, there is not much of low and highs in the way you speak, and there's a matter of fact tone in the way you speak, then you would generally be regarded as somebody who is a straightforward person, right? As against somebody who has too much of variation in the way he speaks and he's almost theatrical. That person is definitely going to come across as somebody who is a bluff master, right? You can be regarded as a facilitator if you have a deep, low-pitched voice and there's a certain warm quality to your voice, then people will look at you as somebody who facilitates situations or facilitates discussions. You can also be asked to arbiter, in situations which, are causing some kind of a conflict. So you might be called in to settle things. So it's a voice that determines your personality. You can be looked at as an attacker or a fighter if you have a sharp, shrill, loud voice. People will not find out about the content of your whatever you may be saying. They will first hear the kind of voice you have and decide upon that what kind of person you are. If, for example, there's not much of pitch variation and you have a controlled voice and you take meaningful pauses, then people will regard you as somebody who is very focused. Now, if you speak hurriedly and there's a snappy tone to your voice, then people will think of you as somebody who is distracted. So you can see how your personality comes across to the people based on your voice. And that is why we need to be very careful about how we modulate our voice, right? And we will see what are the elements that are involved in making our voice the way it is. Let us look at them. So the first one is pitch, the second is intonation, and the third is stress and rhythm. And as I have already spoken about, pitch has to do with how high or low you sound when you speak, right? It could be very high, it could be like high, it could be high. So there is a difference between going up and going down in how you sound. So when you go up high, it becomes all the more shriller and sharper. Women have a higher pitched voice, whereas men have generally a lower pitched voice, right? And pitch is the same as what you know of from your physics. It has to do with the vibrations per second. So the more the frequency, higher is the pitch. And here it is the vibration of the vocal cords. The more the vocal cords vibrate, the higher is the pitch. And less the vocal cords vibrate, lower is the pitch, right? But when we are speaking, it is generally regarded as a good practice to vary your voice from high to medium to low pitch. It is not that you should always be speaking at a high note or at the low note. You also go to the medium note. So it comes naturally to people when they speak. If we speak in a monotone, then it becomes extremely boring, and we try to avoid that. Right? And the next important thing in the voice is intonation. It is how we vary our pitch. When we speak any sentence, how we vary our pitch from high to low, and how is it done? So when we do that, it is called as intonation. And there are certain patterns in intonation which have been given names. So we have these following patterns: falling intonation, rising intonation, fall rise intonation, rise fall intonation. So these are the 4 intonation patterns that we have, and let us look at them, and we will try to understand each one of them from the example. Going too much in the detail is for now outside the scope of our study at this level. We are not studying phonetics as a discipline, and therefore I will not delve extremely deeply into this topic. We will, however, try to understand what is the basic difference between these intonation patterns. Right? So we will check out the examples. We have examples of falling tone and we have examples of rising tone here. Now, falling tone is something that we are aware of, only that we haven't known the name until now. When we finish the sentence, we generally finish it on the falling tone. And it signals to you that the sentence is now complete and there is nothing more coming after it. If somebody, say, continues on even after the sentence has finished, then you generally tend to think that something is coming after it. So this is how it happens. And let us look at the examples. When we speak, for example, the first example here, who is this? If you speak it the way generally it is to be spoken, then it is, who is this? And if you want to speak it in a rising tone, then it would be, who is this? Right? Compare it with, who is this? Who is this? Right? Now, these tone types happen depending upon the situation. Now, you will use the rising tone. For example, if you called up somebody over the phone and the person who picks the phone is not somebody you expected to picking up the phone and speaking to you, you was very surprised, and then you ask that person, who's this? I was expecting to talk to Sandeep. Right? So all these tones types happen situationally. And we are all aware of it, only that we do not know the names to these tone types that we have already been using. Okay, so now let us look at the second type. If we speak the second sentence in the following tone as a statement, it would come out like this. Don't write a notebook. Now this is a simple sentence. Don't write a notebook. Right? Now, suppose it has been said to you, don't write a notebook. And you expected that the teacher would ask you to write in the notebook. And now you're a little confused. Now you want clarification. So you ask back in a question form and in a rising tone. Don't write a notebook. Right? So see, it has a rising tone. Right? So all of this is situational. When you would be using what? Now let us look at the third example. When we say why, it is stated simply, why, as a question. And you can also state it in the rising tone. Why? Now this has to do with you bringing in a certain degree of irritation into your voice, and you really want to know why exactly something is being asked of you, right? So you ask a question like this, why? So this is a rising tone. Again, okay can be said in the falling tone and even in the rising tone. You can say okay, and you can say it as okay. Now, when you say okay, it's as though somebody is trying to confirm, is it all right? Say, for instance, the teacher asks you to do something, and then she wants to confirm if it is all right with you. So she says, okay, you're going to do that. Okay? So it comes more in the form of a question and in the rising tone. Right? So let us move further. Now we are going to look at examples of fall-rise tone and rise-fall tone. Now again, all of these are said in certain situations. Certain situations demand that they be said in this manner, and that brings out the meaning of the sentence. Right? So you can say really to express doubt. For example, really, really. And you can say it as in a sarcastic way, or you can show your delight when you say really. And how will you say that? Really. See, there's a difference between really, really. So it goes up in the middle and then comes back down. Right. Again, in the fall rise, we can have go back. Again, you are doubtful. So you are asking, go back. And you can say go back in as if you are making mockery of somebody. Go back. Back. Right? So see the difference. You can say no way. When you are irritated, you may say it like, and to think up of a situation in relation to this, it could be, for example, somebody tells you that there'll be no internet for 2 weeks, and then you really feel irritated and you say, no way, right? No way. And how can you say it as an emphatic expression? No way. No way. Right? So this is an emphatic expression. Right? Now you can say hello in a polite fashion. You can say hello in a sarcastic fashion. In the polite fashion, you say hello. And in the sarcastic fashion, you can say it as hello. Hello. Right? So this is how the difference is created in the tones depending upon the situation. And this is very important to convey the meaning of what you are saying. If you say it in a different tone, it will be taken differently. So we need to be very careful about how we are saying something. That is very important. Right. So the next element in voice is stress. Now, in connected speech, some words stand out because they are pronounced more loudly than the others. They are said to be stressed or accented. So, in connected speech, there are words which are said more loudly, more emphatically than some of the other words in the sentence which are weakened or relaxed. And we'll look at the examples and then we'll try to understand how it works. Now, let us look at the first example. Now, in the first example, the first mark that you see is an apostrophe, and it is not the stress mark. The stress mark that you will see in the sentences would be short and vertical, right? Line. So, let us look at the first example. I found the book. So, you would be stressing on found and book. I found the book. Next one. It's kind of you to ask me. It's kind of you to ask me, right? So when you speak the sentence, these words are going to gain prominence when you speak. Next one, Mohan and Sohan are brothers, right? So Mohan, Sohan and brothers would gain prominence in the sentence. Next one, I couldn't see the house. I couldn't see the house. Next one, you have don't bother. Both are stressed. Next one is no thanks. Right? So this is how stress is functions in connected speech. Let's go further and look at rhythm. Now, rhythm is something which tells you about periodicity. Now, it could mean the recurrence of certain patterns of color, design, or sound at regular intervals of space or time. This is how we generally define a rhythm. In music, we have certain kinds of beats or sound complexes which are repeated at regular intervals of time, and it is that which constitutes the rhythm in music. In language, this refers to the periodic recurrence of certain complexes or patterns of sound in utterance which constitutes the text. Right? Now, to understand what we mean by this, we need to look at some of the sentences. What happens in a language is that some of the words, as we just saw earlier, that some of the words are stressed while the other words are unstressed. Now, when the stressed words occur at regular intervals of time, then some kind of rhythm is created. Because they are occurring at regular intervals, we have a pattern of periodicity occurring because of there being stressed words, then unstressed words, then stressed word, then unstressed words. So now this is what causes some kind of periodicity in the sentence, and this is what constitutes the rhythm in the sentence. Now let us check out the sentences. Now we have it as, he did his best to save the man. He did his best to save the man. So you can see he, his, to, and the are weakened, or they are relaxed. Now these are the ones which are not pronounced with that much of loudness. We are loud only when we are speaking out, did best save man. So when somebody, for example, speaks it out, a native speaker especially, or if you're watching a movie, you may find that you are able to hear only did best save man. Right? So this is how it actually functions. So you may hear it as, he did the best to save the man. He did the best to save the man. And you can see there's a rhythm in the sentence. I always like a cup of coffee. I always like a cup of coffee. I told him to wait in the corridor. Tell him to go to the examination hall. Tell him to go to the examination hall. Now you can see here that the stress mark is not on exam. It's not just before exam. It is upon nation. Now, something more intricate to the working of stress in this language is that stress marks are given to the syllables in the sentence, because the words are broken up into syllables, and it is the syllables which get the stress mark. And because we are not going into too much detail, we are just looking at them as stress marks given before the words. So here basically the nation is going to be pronounced in a more louder fashion. So this is how it works. So tell him to go to the examination hall. So nation will be pronounced more loudly. Next, do you know that they are in trouble? Do you know that they are in trouble? He suggested that we all should go to the church every Sunday. Right? So with the stressing of the words and unstressing of some words in between, rhythm is created in sentence. Right? And it is very important to maintain that kind of rhythm, because it also conveys a certain meaning across to the audience or to your listener. If you stress some word which does not require so much stress, then your meaning changes. And that is why we need to be careful about how we are stressing the words in our sentence. Right. So now we come to the end of today's session, and we have looked at kinesics, paralinguistics, and within paralinguistics we have seen what a voice is and how it affects us We have looked at what constitutes our voice, our pitch, intonation, stress, and rhythm.